welcome to Car and Bike. We have a very special motorcycle today with us, and of course very expensive as well. The new Ducati Diavel. Now this is a third generation Diavel, and what's new? Of course it gets the V4 engine, the V4 Granturismo engine. New monocoque chassis, the aluminium monocoque chassis. The steel trellis frame is gone. It's got more power, it's lighter, and of course it's expensive at 25,90,000 rupees ex-showroom. So what is it? What's it all about? Should you even consider it? We'll talk all about it in a bit. Now let's take a closer look at what the new Diavel V4 is all about. Named after the devil, there is no mistaking the new Diavel. In its third generation now, the Diavel V4 still looks muscular, menacing and sporty, all rolled into one. It's definitely a head turner with loads of road presence. From the 4 exhaust tips to the massive rear wheel to the LED tail light, the Diavel V4 certainly has some unique details and top shelf components. The lighter cast alloy wheels are shod with Pirelli Diablo Rosso 3 tires, and the braking system is top notch as well, with twin discs up front and Brembo Stylema 4-piston calipers. Compared to its predecessor, the Diavel V4 is more compact with a shorter wheelbase, sharper steering geometry and a lighter chassis and wheels. And the result is that it's 13 kg lighter than the last generation model. Standing still, it looks ready to pounce, and not without reason. Out on the road, the Diavel V4 certainly makes a solid statement. If it's the brawny, muscular sport cruiser you're looking for, the Diavel V4 has no dearth of brilliance. So that's what the Ducati Diavel V4 looks like. One look and you won't be mistaken that this is the Diavel, the new generation Diavel. Overall silhouette remains the same, muscular front end with those air intakes. LED light with a LED DRL around it, and fat 50 mm upside down forks. Now this panel may have a brushed steel finish, but it's plastic, and of course you don't see the steel trellis frame. That's been replaced by an aluminium monocoque, lighter frame, lighter wheels, and that makes the new Diavel V4 full 13 kgs lighter than the last gen Diavel 1262. Now, if you see the engine, of course, it's the V4 engine, the new V4 Granturismo engine. One set of cylinders on this side, the other side on that side, other set on that side. And this one, although it looks like a cylinder, it's a plastic cover over the rear cylinder. And this one, the front cylinder is exposed. There's also a heat shield here to keep the engine heat away from the rider when you're riding. Now, seat height, of course, is quite accessible, 790 mm. So my height is 5 feet 9 inches. I can comfortably flat foot both sides. So handlebar has been pulled back 20 mm and pegs are mid mounted. So overall the riding position is still upright, but the reach has become more comfortable in my opinion than the last gen Diavel. There's one interesting thing about the new Diavel V4 is the tail light. There's an array of LED lights here, 120 in all. That's how the tail light looks like, and the brake lights light up like that. So that's an interesting bit, a completely new design on the tail light. And if you come close, there's a 5-inch TFT screen. You get everything here, ride modes, all 5 ride modes, sport, touring, urban, wet. And each riding mode is fully customizable. So you can change the wheelie control settings, you can change the engine map, you can change the traction control settings, you can change the ABS settings on each mode. Now sport and touring, you get the full 166 bhp power, whereas urban and wet, the power is dialed down to about 114 bhp so that you don't lose control. Again, in low traction conditions, you can dial up the ABS settings, you can dial up the traction control settings. So each mode is fully customizable depending on your individual preference, and I think that's a great thing. There's no separate rider customizable mode. Each mode you can fully customize according to your preference. And the menus are pretty easy to navigate through. So that's a very intuitive kind of a menu. So I think that's a very good thing on the Diavel V4. And overall, that's how it looks like. And if I have to nitpick, I would say there's only one thing I don't like for a bike costing this much. The rear view mirrors The left is still okay for me. The right, I couldn't adjust it to my liking. So I think that is something which is a bit of a dampener for a bike this expensive and this powerful. I would have preferred a little bit more visibility, but I just couldn't manage to adjust the rear view mirror. So that's something to keep in mind. But overall, that's what it looks like, the Diavel V4. Let us know your thoughts about what it looks and what you think about it in the comments. The star of the show definitely is the new 4-cylinder V4 Granturismo engine. Even though it gains 2 cylinders in the earlier 1262cc L-twin engine, the new V4 engine is slightly smaller in displacement. But the V4 engine actually makes more power than the L-twin engine. Peak output is 166 bhp at 10,750 rpm with a linear torque curve with 126 Nm of peak torque kicking in at 7,500 rpm. What that means is you get a strong and wide mid-range and a top end that goes absolutely ballistic. The 6-speed gearbox is slick and precise, and what's very impressive is the up and down quick shifter, which works seamlessly, possibly one of the best I have experienced. But the biggest takeaway is the V4 engine's performance. It can be tame with the rear cylinders automatically deactivated at lower revs, and just a twist of the wrist will bring out the wild side of the Diavel V4 out in the open. There's plenty of power, more than enough to possibly rival many superbikes on the street, at least in terms of brutal, violent acceleration. And it's an engine that is certainly full of character. In all, the Diavel V4 has become closer to a sport bike than a cruiser in its latest incarnation. First things first, let's talk about the performance of the V4 Granturismo. It's a performance-packed engine, full 166 bhp of power. If you're not careful, by the time you hit 6th gear, you'll be in illegal speeds in no time. 150, you won't even realize you've hit it 150. And it can go up to 250 plus speeds. Of course, that's not advisable, so I'll advise not to. But you have to keep control of your right hand because this thing is really fast despite that weight and despite that size. And in terms of dynamics, the V4, the wheelbase has shortened, the steering geometry has been sharpened, and the weight savings, 13 kg lighter weight, has made it more agile than previous Diavels. If the previous Diavels felt a little more lazy around corners, this one definitely feels more agile. There's no taking away the fact that it's a fat 246 in rear tire and that you feel the heft of the tire, but it is a Ducati and it can handle and it can keep up and give you that entertainment if you're riding through a twisty road. So, more agile, lighter, and at V4 engine, the throttle response has become smoother, more linear than before. If the previous generation Diavels had a snatchy throttle response, this one is very smooth, very controllable. So overall, I think this is a really good bike. In terms of stopping power, the Diavel V4 gets Brembo's Stylema calipers, possibly one of the best brakes available on any other motorcycle, and stops on a dime. So you get, with all that performance, you get very good stopping power as well. And yes, lighter, nimbler, more agile, more powerful, smooth and linear throttle response. This Diavel V4 is a much improved motorcycle than any of the previous generation Diavels that I have ridden. And that's saying something. It's a completely improved motorcycle overall. The Diavel V4 is possibly best enjoyed alone. Just you, an empty road, and V4 power. For those looking for longer rides, there's a long list of touring accessories available, including panniers and a small windscreen. And in case you want a companion, there's enough room for a pillion, but it won't possibly be as much fun as riding solo. Now you'll have more fun riding this bike alone, but in case you want a significant other to take a joyride, there's some space here, but there's no support. But wait a minute, for the footrest, you go down like that, and there's a small grab rail, but I don't know how much use that will be. So you have to pull this up and pull it out, and That's your grab rail for some support for you while turning it around, pushing it around, and for your pillion in case the performance gets too much. The Ducati Diavel V4 is not for everyone, and not just because of its performance. Priced from 25,91,000 rupees ex-showroom for the one in red, going up to 26,20,000 rupees ex-showroom in black, it's an expensive proposition, and you will need to be mature enough to respect its performance as well. After all, temptation is the devil looking through that keyhole, and opening that door, or the Diavel V4's throttle in this case, can become quite a handful. The Diavel V4 is a burly, macho bad boy which could get you into trouble, or at least tempt you into thinking about what kind of sins you could make with this. In the end, it's a great bike, fun with all the state-of-the-art electronics wizardry to keep you safe and on this side of the law. But make no mistake, the devil's still lurking under there, and sin is just a downshift and a handful of throttle away. The Diavel V4 is still a power-packed Ducati, and with that kind of performance comes a certain amount of responsibility as well. So if you have deep enough pockets, go ahead, indulge in this devilry.